Since my first video on the 3D or Octagon style mask that I'm making, I have come up with a few improvements, one of which is the design of the filter. The original filter I had stitching along here to help give it some shape, and then it would just fold out and these flaps would be loose inside the mask. That turned out to be rather difficult for people to handle, and the flaps wanted to fold in. So I took another look at the filter design and came up with this. It's basically the same thing, but instead of trimming these flaps in here and just having them loose, I extend them and stitch the extensions together so that it has little points sticking out here. Those points then can be inserted into a slot that I leave unsewn when stitching the tube on the side of the mask here. And the end result looks something like this. You can see the points go right into those little slots there, and that makes it so that the filter does a much better job of staying in place and being open when you want to put it on your face. The other thing I've been experimenting with is for people who have to wear this for a long time and don't like the pressure on the back of their ears or the way it tends to fold your ear forward if you really tighten it up well to get a good seal. I experimented with making just a single loop of elastic which runs through there, and then this loop goes behind your neck, this one goes behind your head on top of your ears, and you can snug it up with the one adjuster down below here, something like this. So you put your head through the neck loop first, pull it up into position, get it over your ears, adjust the nose, and then you can pull on the adjuster here, slide that up, and by adjusting the amount of tension on the top loop and the bottom loop, you can get it so it gives you a nice comfortable fit. And this would probably be better for someone who has to spend hours and hours wearing a mask. If you're just going in and out of a store, the ear loops are probably more convenient than this. You can still take it down quickly, just like that. But still, I think ear loops might be a little simpler to get it on and off your face quickly. So, in today's video, short addendum to my previous one, I'll be showing how to make that slight change in the mask body and how to assemble the new style of filter. I've also cut a template for it. It's the same as the old one, but instead of cutting off these little corners, it now has these little extensions out here. One of the benefits to this too is that I found that I no longer have to make these 4 diagonal stitches here, which definitely saves some time when constructing the filter. The slight modification to the body that I've made to accommodate this new filter design is that instead of pressing this over the edge here and then stitching the whole edge to the body to make the tube that the elastic goes through, I stitch this, top stitch this, just to keep it folded over, and then I stitch it just the first ½ inch or so at each end here, leaving an open section in the middle. When the filter goes in, the little points on the end of the filter slip into that slot then, and that helps keep the filter open and in position when you put the mask on. So this is how that goes. So that's stitched there, and then I just tack a 1/2 inch at each end, leaving the center open. So here it is with the little slot that the tip goes in. That might be maybe a little wide. You want it wide enough that it's going to take that whole pointy tip, but maybe not so wide that there's a lot of slap there, because the closer it is to the edge, the better it'll be. So the main difference between the filters that I was using originally in this mask, which again looked like this. This was a single ply prototype I made. They were stitched along the edge here, and then the flaps were just folded up and stitched on little diagonals at each end here to give it some shape. And when you put it in the mask, you had to kind of like fold these back, and putting it on your face could be a little tricky because they might want to fold in, as my beta testers told me when they started using them. So I put my mind to it and came up with a slight variation, which starts out with the same basic shape, but not cut diagonally inward here. Instead, it goes out, and there's a little wing on each corner. It looks like an extended capital I or I-beam. And I'm also doing 3 layers instead of 2 now, which I find quite easy to breathe through still and should give you better filtering. And to do this, I start out, to sew it, I start out by marking one side with the lines, which I can barely see through here. I don't know if it shows on the camera, but I can just see where they go. It doesn't have to be super accurate. So I mark the fold lines where I'll be stitching. And then on the other side, I found that I no longer need to stitch these diagonals here, which saves a bit of time. I do mark this line, which is the line that it used to be cut on, because that needs to line up with the edge of the filter when I'm folding it in. So on the other side from the long folds, I just mark roughly where those folds, or where the edge has to line up when I'm sewing things. Sorry. Okay, so first things first, I want to stitch all the way around the perimeter. I don't go out on the horns there, or the wings. I just do a square all the way around. And to help keep things from shifting while I'm sewing, I'll put a few clips on here. Then I want to stitch on the folds, which I can barely see here, but that should be about right. then the next step is to give these a fold similar to the one that we did on the mask. And this is where the lines I made, which runs about there, get lined up with the edge. Again, I will clip these in place. And here, there's the added trick that we're going to try and overlap those little wingtips. So that they lay on top of each other. Like so. All right, that's ready to sew. Going to switch to a zigzag. Just tack those together. Last but not least, I fold the wingtip kind of back on itself and underneath so that I can lay it down out of the way and stitch the whole edge here without catching any of that tip. Switch back to a straight stitch for that. Same thing here, just folding it back against itself and kind of laying it down out of the way so that I can stitch across there without catching the wing. And there is the finished filter insert with the little points coming off there. So you take your mask, work those corners into the folded part of the mask, which can take a little bit of back and forth. I get them generally inserted, and I open it up a bit, work it up into the ends, push the corners up in there with my fingers. So here is the finished mask. And you can see how the little tips on the filter insert just get stuck into that little slot that was left unsewn. And that helps hold them in position so that when you go to put it on your face, it doesn't fold over and get pushed back into the mask. And if you are going to be putting it away for a while, you can just lay things flat, fold it in, tuck it into your pocket, collect the loops in there, etc. And to use it, pull it out, give it a little shape. And you're ready to go.